All right, everybody. Welcome to another week of the Safely Extreme podcast, where we discuss game design and industry topics. This will be for the week of December 6th, 2020. I'm, of course, Josh Beiser, and joining me, as always, is my co-host, lead designer at Nexus Games, Sharky. How are you doing?
Uh, I've been better, certainly, but hopefully things are going to turn around soon.
Yep, here's hoping. And I was set to actually talk to a library tomorrow, and unfortunately, the librarian there has a COVID symptom, so she's not going to be in for a meeting tomorrow. Sadly,
Uh-uh.
eh, it's not going to be. It's still a very chaotic time. It's only 1 month left for 2020, so there's still plenty of time for things to get worse, I guess.
Oh yeah, like I have a feeling that 2020 ain't going to be over when it turns 2021.
Mm-mm. 2020 plus one or 2020 part two.
Yeah, it's part one because this is a prequel.
Oh, good.
We're on the prequel.
There's some. That's a very optimistic note to start the stream on, isn't it?
Yeah.
But
Hello, Rat Stuff
hello,
and
everybody.
Mojo. No, that's not Mojo.
No.
Thought that was Mojo for a second.
But this week, hold on one second. My camera feels like it's like not being angled right. Yeah, it's all the better. But this week we are going to be discussing how do you study a game design or study game design in general when you're trying to work on your own game or look for research on a title. And I think this will be a very interesting one. Let's see. Games that, or I guess in terms of what's been going on, I've been trying to figure out how to get a second channel set up for the live stream archives for the gameplay stuff, and YouTube is making it painfully difficult to do that.
Painfully difficult. So that's extremely extreme.
Yep.
They need to be safely extreme.
Mm-hmm. You wouldn't think it would be that hard, but apparently it is to do it.
Yeah, YouTube is a pain.
Mm-hmm. And it's good that you're saying that on my stream, so I get all the DMods.
Well, I got demods every time.
Oh, yeah, you have to worry about that now too.
Yeah, because see, every video is automatically demodded because I don't have 1,000 subscribers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that unfortunately is true. Well, just stir up some controversy. Say Cyberpunk's going to be a horrible game and everyone who plays it's terrible. I'm sure you'll get 10,000 views on that.
Or just say that Sekiro's the worst game ever. Spelunky's the worst game ever.
Yep, and throw a little Cyberpunk. You gotta stay topical. That's how you get big on YouTube. Let's see. So, other than that, oh, thank you. Hope you've been enjoying them. Got
Yeah.
another really good one coming out this week, and oh, here's a little bit of fun news. The place I write for on Medium, Super Jump magazine, won the best independent journalistic award and like an Australian like website award ceremony, a Samsung thing.
Nice.
Yeah. So I
Well,
have
you're
to,
part of that.
yeah. So I have to hopefully assume that all my rants about game design are helping them become famous.
Maybe what they'll do is like you're the entire reason why they're getting the reward. You can take 100% of that credit.
Oh yeah, sure. It was the Samsung IT Journalism Awards that was held in Australia this past week.
Hmm.
There we go. I don't think I won Best Dress, although I don't think I was up for that award.
I mean, they obviously have not seen the your Disney picture.
Oh yeah, submit that one. I'm sure I'll win all the awards for that. Speaking about awards, this week will be the Game Awards. That's going to be December 10th, which is a Thursday. So you think we should do like a live stream of it?
I mean, we can. I don't know why most people would want to watch it. I don't know
Masochism?
why I'd want to watch it.
Yeah. Gotta be careful though, because if you're not famous enough, YouTube will come down on you hard for streaming something else.
Yeah. So, I mean, if we do it, it's going to have to be probably.
Keep the picture like this big, and like put like a little corner with no sound on.
Yeah. And then just our reactions to things for the
Mm-hmm.
most part.
Yeah. Also, I'm going to be rubbing my eye a lot for today. I got shampoo in my eye last night, so if I start
Uh,
winking uncontrollably, you'll know why.
we thought it was because you like that one special person in the audience.
Mm-hmm. There you go. My number one fan watching.
Wink, wink.
There you go. Let's see. I've
But I think on top of shrinking it down to a small size, we also need to like throw a tint over it so the colors are thrown off.
mm-hmm.
The tint in the
Mirror
overlay.
it, like reverse it as well, so everything's backwards.
I don't know if we can do that live.
I don't
I
know.
don't know if YouTube has something like that live.
Yeah.
I know you can do that in post, but if we like for my channel, that blue kind of transparent haze kind of thing I got.
Mm-hmm.
We can take one of those. We could take that exact one and do like 5 different colors of it and like cut in sections so that that
Mm-hmm.
one part gets colored this color, one gets part this color, and that's in the overlaid on top of it. So that you just cut out a little hole to put the video behind it. Like we could just do it right there underneath the Safely Stream logo kind of thing, just right in the hole between the two little. I don't even know what you call those things. The things that are coming out of from our mouth area.
Yeah, I'm not
Just
sure
right in
either.
between those.
Yeah, we could try something that. For those of you watching, if you want to see us do like a kind of live reaction slash migraine inducing coverage of the Game Awards, let us know.
Yeah. So we can see all the famous people that have nothing to do with games and all the famous YouTubers that have nothing with games. And we can get the world premiere 5 billion times.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. I almost forgot about that. Take a drink every time they say world premiere.
Oh man, we would not make it out alive out of that one.
And I'm sure Final Fantasy VII will win every award just for
Oh yeah.
you.
Yeah, that and Spelunky and
Last of
Sekiro,
Us.
even though Sekiro's like a couple years old,
Mhm.
and also Among Us, even though
Mhm.
Among Us is a couple years old. That's the only one I would not have a complaint about winning. A solid complaint. I mean, I have a complaint about it being the wrong year,
Yeah.
but I have no problem with it winning a award. I don't think
Posthumous
Candy Raid
award?
is on there. Or
No.
Chromasia, the word of the day.
And I don't think I'm going to be taking home a best YouTuber award.
Nope.
If I
You
will
you got
play
to work
more,
on your YouTuber reactions to get that.
eh. And if I will play some more Fortnite, I could become best esports player. But it seems like that award for best YouTuber or whatever is like the cursed award. Isn't it like everyone who gets nominated or wins gets like a major controversy the next year?
Probably, but I don't think that's because of the award.
Like the
I
Madden
think
curse.
I think what it is the award gives them a lot of fame. A lot of people come to their channel then, and then the stupid stuff they were already doing gets highlighted,
Mm-hmm.
or it either goes to their head and they have a power trip, and then they say something stupid because of the power trip.
Mm-hmm.
One of the two.
Don't I have to go mad with power though?
I mean, you went mad with power. What was it last night?
Yeah, with a Creeper World.
Yeah.
Let's see. I've officially started to write book number 4 about horror. There's actually words down on a Word document now for the book. We're taking baby steps.
How many words?
About 100 so far. There's
Nobody cares
about
about how many words are in your book.
I don't know, probably at least 27 to 30,000. So we're really moving forward there.
Yeah.
Oh man! Incidentally, I had a creepy dream last time when I invented a survival horror RPG where I died in every encounter. So even in my dreams, the masochism takes root.
How did you? But you're doing survival horror, like
Hmm.
you you know. I don't know. As for Creeper World, I really like the series. The
Hmm.
developers, on the other hand, I went to their Discord and
uh,
not a favorable response. I
don't meet your
no
heroes,
longer
people.
in. Yeah, I'm no longer in that Discord. I can't remember if I quit or if I was banned, but one of the two happened. And yeah, lots of drama.
That could totally be my book, Mojo. Just repeat that line again and again. Submit it to the publisher. Okay, give me my royalties on this.
No beard, covered mate, Josh. Something, a something, something.
Oh boy.
I need to write a book now, you know,
Mm-hmm.
or to be
Let's.
no programmer, COVID, make Sharky a something, something.
Mm-hmm. Oh, let's see. I finally subscribed to the Humble Trove thing, their monthly subscription to get a bunch of games. So I now own Overcook, that Indivisible, One Step from Eden, and a few other ones. Book Bros, there we go.
Super Boat Bros.
Yeah, that'll be the sequel.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm going to keep it just for a month to see if there's anything else on it that I would like. And we played that game, The Beast Inside, which was a horror game that was more about busy work than I think survival horror, which is really impressive.
It was also about weird first person shooting.
Yeah. And
And it was a visual novel too.
code breaking.
Yeah.
Hmm. I mean,
Like
like I said, I'll give them credit for having variety and lots of gameplay. I just don't know if that's a gameplay I expect when I hear the word horror in your game.
well, I meant Resident Evil
Mm-hmm.
has a lot of gunplay and whatnot in it. All of them do, whether it's the action based ones or the not action based one. They all have the gunplay in it.
I was talking more
But
about the code breaking puzzles.
oh yeah, I mean there's some of that in Resident Evil too. It's just not to that kind of extreme.
Yeah. Let's see. Have you
And
had a
not
chance
that
to
quantity.
play anything new this week?
I played Hardcore Mecha this week for the stream,
Hmm.
and man, we looked at that in one of the spotlights,
Mm-hmm.
and we were definitely both really excited about that one, and played it and everything, and not only did it live up to basically all the expectations I had of it, it exceeded them. It
Mm.
was really, really good. It was really solid. Like there is definitely not a perfect game. There's some issues. Like some of the fonts are a little bit too small,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of thing. It's a little bit too button heavy. Although I don't know if there's anything they could have done with that.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit. Like I think they could have improved the controls a little bit. But like just not by much kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. Like it's all just minor stuff, minor stuff in major areas, mind you, but very minor stuff
Mm-hmm.
nonetheless. And like I at the moment where I'm at, I don't know how the game could get any better besides just more and slight tweaks, because like it's really solid. It's I hope that at some point, it unlocks like me being able to spray paint my mechs and color them and whatnot. I don't know if that's in there, but I hope it's in there because that would be awesome.
Yeah, and the strange thing is, I put in a press key through a contact forward months ago, and then when I emailed them, they said, "Oh, we're not doing it anymore." No one ever told me otherwise.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, so now I'm kind of scrambling to see when I get a press key for it. So we'll see if that actually works this time.
Yeah,
Let's
that's
see.
rough.
Let's see. Let's talk a little quickly about game news, and then we'll go into weird games and see what's coming out this week. We've streamlined the list, so hopefully it won't be a 2-hour look at games this time. But we got some very weird ones on our list this time.
Yeah, which I actually have a proposition for you, Josh, on that. What do you think about we turn weird, and I want the chats, both of the chats to answer on this. What do you think about making weird game segment like its own show kind of thing? And, getting, taking that part out of the Safeway Stream podcast and just do the weird games podcast, I guess.
Well, that could be something interesting to do. Spend like an hour each week looking at games on Keymailer or somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? Record it on the same day or maybe sometime in the middle of the week?
Probably sometime on a different day.
Yeah. We have to just figure out what day, and that could be something interesting. It would basically cut these streams down by like 45 minutes to an hour, but would give us some more content.
Yeah. It would also allow us to go longer into the topic, which would probably take up that 45 minutes right back up because we generally don't have time to keep on going kind of thing.
All right. Well, people, for those of you watching this live or recorded, let us know in the comments what you think about that. And would you watch us do like a 45-minute to an hour long show just on covering what games are coming out?
And we could go into more into the criticism and whatnot.
All right. Well, let us know, and if we get enough feedback by next week, we'll think about moving things around like that.
Well, we got two on my side, Rats and Mike, for that. So we're going to go into news, right?
Yeah. Let's see. Apparently, Starbreeze, who made Payday, has officially repaid its debt. So hopefully that means that they're going to be good going forward in terms of whatever their next game is going to be.
Yeah, I mean, it's really difficult to get into that, I think. I don't know much about Starbreeze and whatnot.
Yeah, they of course got really big for publishing Payday, Payday 2, and then their manager, their CEO, just made so many horrible investments and business decisions that left the company.
There was also some embezzling too, wasn't there?
Yeah, I think so. And then he got, I think, kicked out, and then the company's been trying to recover ever since.
Yeah, that's a rough recovery. I didn't think they would be able to recover.
Let's see. Neil Druckmann, who was the creative director on Last of Us, is now the co-director of the company, or co-president.
Yeah, that means you can expect more crap from that company. Even more.
It doesn't sound like we're going to be getting another Crash Bandicoot game from Naughty Dog either.
Apparently, the reason why he got promoted is basically because the last game made money.
Of course.
Which had nothing to do with anybody else but Neil Druckmann. It had nothing to do with the massive marketing or the silencing of all this other content that was negatively, impacting the thing. It was all Neil Druckmann. Nothing to do with marketing or silencing the critics.
I'm sure The Last of Us 2 will be taking home awards as well.
Oh, yeah, probably. It'll probably win Best Storytelling. And, everybody's complaining about the storytelling of that game.
I still haven't played it. And I still haven't played Death Stranding. I got it from one of the sales, so ideally when I'm done with Yakuza 7, I'll be able to check out Death Stranding.
I need to call Fat Tony.
Let's see. Call of Duty made $3 billion for Activision in 1 year. So I guess that means we're going to be seeing more Call of Duty games.
Yeah, I wonder who got promoted to co-owner off of that one.
Yep. That is anybody's guess there. Let's see. 2 people from BioWare left the company: the executive producer and the general manager.
Yeah, doesn't surprise me.
Mm-hmm.
That's I think that's kind of the rats running from the ship that's on fire, diving into the ocean.
And we still haven't really heard anything new from BioWare after they said we're going to try and fix Anthem.
Yeah, I think they canceled Anthem, actually, didn't they?
I don't know.
I thought I heard that like a week or few ago.
Let's see. Developer of the creator of Silent Hill, Siren, and Gravity Rush is forming their own game studio. That sounds pretty interesting. I had no idea that the same guy who did Silent Hill also created Siren and Gravity Rush. That's 3 very different games right there.
Yeah, it is.
I really like Siren, although I hated the gameplay of it. I respect what it did, but I just could not play that game. Did you ever play Siren?
No, I don't even know what that one is.
Survival horror where your whole big power is you can project your vision into the enemy so you can see what the enemies are looking at. And it's all stealth based, and one level involves you fighting sniper rifle wielding zombies who apparently have inherent night vision. They can shoot you from like 80 feet away while you're in a dark tunnel.
So what you do is you take over the eyes of the opponent, and then you realize that you're right in the crosshairs, and you're like, oh crap.
Yeah, that happens a lot. It's like, what are they looking at? It's like, uh-oh. And then you get shot. It did go on to get a sequel that was also done episodic. It had a lot of style for the time. And interesting to see them doing their own game. I heard some rumors about there maybe resurrecting the whole Silent Hills thing. But I haven't heard much after that.
Yeah, the whole Silent Hill thing with what was that one game?
PT?
Yeah, PT. I thought that pretty much all got squished with PT kind of thing.
Yep. And again, it's anyone's guess what Konami is up to these days besides pachinko machines.
Other various gambling machines.
Yeah.
I'm honestly surprised they're not heavy into loot boxes.
Well, don't give them any more ideas.
Because that's basically the same thing.
Yep. And I'm hoping we can get I was just thinking about one other bit of news. I'm hoping we get Tomo on, because we missed our monthly cast with everything happening in November. So ideally we can get him on, I think, this week, because we still need to talk about Satisfactory and Zachtronics.
Yeah, somebody was trying to get me to play Satisfactory this morning. And I was like, yeah, maybe in a couple years from now when they update it enough to... Because, like, I don't dislike Satisfactory. I don't even own Satisfactory. But I'm not interested in playing it until it's far enough along that it's either better or different than Factorio. And I don't just mean 3D in first person, because...
I did really mean Infinifactory for Zachtronics. Zachtronics did not make Satisfactory. Although I get those two confused. Let's see. But I think with that, let's get to our weird game segment and see what is going on this week. So let me switch things over, and we will be starting with the Sharks list. There we go. So, The first game you chose was Matt's Project Zombies Endless, which is an amazing name for an indie game.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like this guy needs to watch our podcast on naming your game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and look at the very generic UI.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like assets. Probably is assets.
Yeah.
But if you look at other parts of the game besides like that, like I mean the art isn't the best, but it's not half bad. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean it looks like there could be some actual fun gameplay here.
Mm-hmm. It's
But it can
also
also be horrible at the same time. You can't really tell.
it's also a racing and sports game.
Does it really say that? Oh my god. Okay, forget everything I just said. Scrap it.
Yeah, this looks very asset flippy to me.
It doesn't look asset flippy, I don't think. It just looks cheap.
Mm-hmm.
Because like if you look at like the screenshot before last,
Mm-hmm.
you see that pillar there. It is perfectly square. Nobody would buy an asset that's perfectly square like that. That is just cheaply done.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and like maybe there are some assets in here. Like that gun looks asset
Yeah.
that's in his hand in this.
Some of the text on screen looks a little suspect as well.
Well, I mean, text is just a font at
Yeah.
that point, and fonts are always just, pretty much what, there's only a few fonts out there that you can actually use legally.
Yeah. It is.
But the UI definitely looks like assets. The
Oh, here's I think part of the problem. It looks like he's using screenshots from different alpha versions of his game. So it looks like if you look at the first one, it says pre-alpha version point 1, and then a few screenshots later we're at version pre-alpha point 3. So we're getting like very misleading thumbnails here in a way.
he didn't even take. He didn't take. Wait a minute. Okay, number one, he didn't take screenshots just for the store page, which is, very bad.
Mm-hmm.
Next thing is the oldest thing we get here is pre-alpha 3, and it's supposed to be out on the 7th in a couple days.
Yeah.
Tomorrow.
You can
That's
finish the whole game up in a day, right?
yeah, that's a red flag.
All right.
But if you look at like the second screenshot, you see another one of those plain textures where it's just square for the poles going up, and it's just very cheaply done. It's not assets because nobody would buy an asset like that.
Mm.
Now, I'm not saying no assets are in here because I mean there's assets in almost every game. That water thing is probably an asset.
Yeah. If you look at the fourth thumbnail, you can see it very smallly. I think that's version 0.1. This I wonder if that's the most up. No, it could still be the same older version number.
Yeah, probably.
All right. Let's move on to Headbangers and Holiday Hell. I think I did see this one. Oh my.
I mean, you got to have headbangers in a holiday hell.
It's a twin stick roguelite.
What is a rogue?
Mm-hmm. Well, you'll find out in April when my book is out. Art looks decent.
Yeah. The if you look at the one with the reindeer on it,
Mm-hmm.
those little bricks around the outside don't look the best.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean it's passable.
But again, is passable enough in today's market.
Well, I mean, it's passable. I think it's passable for today's market, but it's not good for today's market.
Mm-hmm. Could be interesting. We did play that other game that was inspired by Zombies Ate My Neighbors. And like this one I think looks better. Like if you look at the GIF, like further down with the reindeer, throwing his snot at you. I like how like the character's like moving around and animating while he's like trying to target the player.
Yeah, as for the game, quote unquote, inspired by Zombies Ate My Neighbor, I don't think it was inspired by that game. I think it was an absolute ripoff of that game, but done worse.
I don't know, this could be something interesting. I wonder if it's... I think it has co-op. Or does it? Now I'm not sure. Fin, fight... This could be something worth just like checking out just to see, how far it goes.
Yeah. You can see that they did... I don't know if that's supposed to be a book or a old video game cartridge thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But you see that?
Yeah. So, I mean, they definitely put work into it.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
At least work into the marketing.
Yep. All right. So, this next one, this is one that I also saw as well. And this is Space Raiders in Space. I mean, right off the bat, it has a very unique, comic book style aesthetic to it.
Mm-hmm. It's very comic booky. It's got the kaboom and everything.
Kind of reminds you of Freedom Force a little bit.
Kind of.
Let's see.
Spin to win.
Mm-hmm. Crews armed with weapons. Yeah, so it says that it's kind of tower defense like, which I'm not sure where that's coming in from with some of these screenshots. Unless it's kind of like a Dungeon the Endless, where your characters are essentially your towers.
Well, if you look down at the first GIF there, you can see the tower defense like thing.
Mm-hmm.
Your characters are the towers, and you gotta guard something.
Mm-hmm. I guess here's a bit of a design question for you. If you look at the first thumbnail, do you think this is a good marketing thumbnail? Because, I don't know, I find there's just a lot of things being thrown at your eyes in that first thumbnail.
I honestly don't know. But I'm guessing not as the first thumbnail.
Mm-hmm.
But it'd probably be good for some a thumbnail, just not the first.
Yeah.
Because I think there's too much going on, too many things unclear. And I think you want to make things clear before you make things unclear and explosive kind of thing.
Yeah. And it's tough to know like what you want your thumbnails, your marketing thumbnails to be in this aspect. Because the developer got in touch with me, showed me the ones he has. One of them is just like the character standing behind like a very black or dark screen, so you can't really see anything. One was, like just like a bunch of action that was hard to tell. And again, it's very hard to show off games, especially trying to show them off in the most positive light.
Yeah. But you definitely want to make sure the first screenshot is clear. Mm-hmm. Because the first one, people are trying to figure out what's going on. And it's the ones after that when you could probably go off of that and be like, show something really, really busy like this first one. Yeah. Because after they understand what's going on, they can, then maybe understand what's going on in that screenshot. But, starting with that one, they can't understand what's going on because that one is just so hard to read.
Yeah. So here's another question for you as well as for the chat watching live or recorded. If you look at the UI paneling at the top, everything is purposely like aimed like diagonally. Like it's not like a straight line. I guess it was represent like a comic book or something along those lines. Do you think that looks good, or do you think that's a little distracting? Because it's kind of like messing with me that it's not like just like straight. It's like at that angle.
I think it can be good if your game suits it, kind of thing. Like we seen something similar to this in what was it, Persona 5.
Mm-hmm.
Because Persona 5 did very much a UI that was very kind of out there kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now then, do I think they could have made it better? Yeah, because like they have all this stuff that's, you know, angled at the top, but then they have this side panel here that is perfectly straight.
Mm-hmm.
And it's causing like a clash there. And like at the bottom, you see they have the very comic booky kind of thing. Like I think they should have probably made these top ones look more like the comic booky one down at the bottom kind of thing. I think that would have probably gone better.
Yeah.
Make them look like panels. But I don't find this to be a bad thing. But, you know, I think the comic book thing fits better than the angled, you know, which is still angled stuff. But it, you know, I think it fit better than the angled stuff they have up here.
Mm-hmm.
If they just put a square or rectangle boxes in here and then made these into panels on that, I think that would have fit the theme better and look better kind of thing for it.
Yeah. If you look at the DLC as available, buy as a beer or buy as a pizza?
What about buy them a beer and a pizza?
That's special. That's the custom DLC. All right. Let's see. So this next one is IAI, which that's going to be a very weird name to try and remember for people to type in. So what made you decide to pick this one?
Well, it's a pretty good looking shooter, I think, and I really like the technicalness of the all the art and everything. It just looks really high tech and polished.
All right. I want to play the video, so let me see what we have here. Let's move it here.
And I like how you're not, at least it seems like you're not taking damage from collisions, because like at one point you're pushing meteors away with your ship.
The art style reminds me a little bit of Jets and Guns. Let's see. So we have upgrades. Yep, there you go. So you're pushing the meteor around.
And you're not taking damage as far as I can tell from it. And if you look at the top, you actually have like an HP bar, not just like one hit kills you kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that we see a lot in kind of more modern shoot 'em up or even shmups with other game systems or other game mechanics in them.
Yeah. It also doesn't look like at any point is there no safe points anywhere on the map. Because we see a lot of side-scrolling shooters go that way, where there's one pixel over here to this one spot where you can stay safe, and everywhere else, good luck, as you're dead. And I really hate when they do that kind of thing.
That'd be interesting. Maybe I'll put in for that.
Yeah, I put in for a key on it, so if I get it, I'll be playing it one of the Tuesday streams.
All right.
On my channel.
All right, but I think with that, I think we switch over to my list, and we first look at Nomads of Driftland. And the reason I picked this one is that their discussion just seems like the design of this seems a little weird. So this was originally built to be an add-on to some other game that they decided to release as a standalone expansion and make it available for free. So the main game is a unique fusion of RTS, 4X strategy, and Sims genres. And I guess, like, looking at these screenshots, my concern is I don't know what's really going on here.
Things and stuff is going on here.
Graphics.
You gotta like the what is that, the fifth thumbnail where you have that giant arrow as a landmass.
Oh my. I see dragons. Yeah, I just don't see. And again, this is why it's so hard to kind of market strategy games. Like, what is the player doing here? I don't know. Clicking on things.
Well, that goes for turn-based too.
Yeah.
Anything turn-based is very hard to get across.
Yeah. Alright, so the next one, Call of the Sea. This is one that I chose this because it feels like they're really leaning into kind of the marketing speak for this, but the game speak or trying to market the gameplay is not good. So if you look at these thumbnails, it's very pretty looking. I don't see any gameplay.
There probably isn't any.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they call it Call of the Sea, but the only sea I see is in the last screenshot.
Let's see. Yep.
It seems more like Call to the Land rather than Call to the Sea.
And when you look at the marketing points, you are exploring a tropical island modeled in Unreal Engine 4.
Because Unreal 4 makes everything better.
4 times better.
Yeah.
Meet a charming character voiced by this woman from Firewatch and The Walking Dead Season 1, who I don't recognize.
So, this is probably a walking simulator.
Yeah. Or it looks like a swimming simulator. Matter.
They will not remember this choice.
Mm-hmm. Solve a variety of clever puzzles, but this GIF looks like you're just running for it and the gate opens by itself.
Well, that's a clever puzzle. See, you gotta run forward, and then once you run forward, the gate opens.
Mm-hmm.
If you walk up to the gate, it'll stay closed. You gotta be at full sprint.
Mm-hmm.
That's the puzzle.
All right. Now,
if you get to this point, he'll walk up to the gate, and he's like, "Why in the hell is this gate not opening?" And try to, spend about 2 hours trying to figure it out. And then he's like, "Oh no!" And then he looks up on something and figures out that you have to sprint. He's like, "Really?" I can picture it all now.
And for those of you wondering, where are the weird games this week? Well, let me show you this next one. This is Hijacker Jack. And this is the first ever FMV live action game with real-time interaction.
Real time?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not turn-based?
No, I don't think it's a JRPG either. Look at these screenshots here. I don't understand when it says the story here. That our decisions during the game will affect his karma as we choose between material values or turning back to his old life, which finally leads the story to one of the 4 different alternate endings. And then it says, more than 2 million players worldwide. Wait, there's more than 2 million people playing this game?
Apparently.
Make story decisions and
are they all bots though?
Maybe. Make story decisions and be ready for your karma. So this just looks like a QTE-driven game to me.
Yeah. It's worse than QTE. It's QT story. And I doubt the story choices matter.
I like the second to last screenshot. Watch out for blinking objects and then choose a quad. Does choosing your quad affect your karma?
Probably.
Mm-mm.
See, if you want the big one, then you're trying to compensate for something. And if you want the small one, then you're trying to compensate the other direction.
Oh my.
And you get karma based off of which.
Apparently get evidence points too. Let's see. So this next one, the Scary Square. I chose this one because I don't know what's going on with this game and what they're trying to do.
Well, it's pretty obvious. You know, right from the beginning, you have to pick whether you want to swear, heartbeat, guitar, old friends, kids having fun, unknown, knock knock, the night, or the deep breath. So, you know, what I would do is take a deep breath, old friend, knock knock on the night.
Found out if Mr. Squares was the killer and discovered the darkness story by picking up tracks that make him speak and try to find who the killer was. You will have too many choices. Pick up one and see how Mr. Square interact with it. Some of the tracks will make Mr. Square mad. To know if he's made, keep your eye on the danger bar, or he will move. You will not be able to stop him, but if he moves from the chair, you can start a music that make him calm down. That makes sense.
Okay, either one or two things. Either this was made by a 12-year-old, or whoever made this, English was not their first language. Although I'm leaning towards 12-year-old. I'm definitely leaning towards 12-year-old.
Okay then.
Which way you lean? You think it's somebody who's not fluent in English or a 12-year-old?
I want to say English, but oh my. I like the danger bar. It's a number. It's not really a bar. Okay then. Alright, so this next one I'm surprised you didn't choose. This is some TCG.
Well, I was actually thinking about picking the C one, Into the Sea.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, I like going into the sea. But then I seen that there was no sea in there. So I seen my way out. And I told him, see you.
So this looks very much like a game trying to mirror Hearthstone to me. Or just every other deck builder out there. Are you into card games? Oh, good. I like how it seems like their goal is to create a fictional universe. Do you think...
like, the board, almost everything on the board looks like an asset. I think all of that is an asset. And then they had cheap art done for the cards. That's what I'm betting.
Like, do you think it's good when they say that we won't mention this is an indie card game and there's currently one game developer and one graphic artist or one graphic designer?
So they're about the same place as I am.
Mm-hmm. Oh boy. Yeah, and as you say, the art is really lacking on these cards.
Yeah. Tell that to anybody who wants to program for me, because I can't be a programmer to actually do the programming. It's not very hard.
And again, it's very hard to know what the rules of this game are, how it's all going to work, especially if it's pay to win or not.
Yeah, you got to find out that.
All right. And we have one more game this week, and I think I saved the best for last. Because wait till you see this first, Shark was saying about how important the first screenshot is. Well, here, look at this one.
Well, I was paying the people who over the last year and a half to work for me, and they didn't get any work done. It's not a lot of money. It's $1,000.
So here you go. This is Howdy Jacob. And don't you love that first screenshot?
Oh yeah, like those puppets are golden.
And
And that
and the
very,
skip
very
button.
busy background behind them is even more golden.
It's a dystopian find the hidden pictures game with full motion video puppets.
The find the image explains why the background's so busy.
Mm-hmm. Oh my. What? And then there's just a lady with the puppets as well. I don't know what the point of the full motion is.
Because it can't have partial motion. It's gotta have full.
Oh boy. Well, it's an indie game, we know that. Alright. But I think enough with the puppets.
Oh, I wanted to put on our puppet show. We need to start our own puppet show. You know, the Josh and Sharky puppet show. Get a puppet Shark and a puppet Josh.
There
the puppet
we go.
would of course have to be wearing a gimp mask
to
show his masochism and whatnot.
There you go. There's a D mod right there.
I doubt you two picked up on that.
All right. But let's get to our main topic, and that's going to be discussing how do you study a game's design, or specifically study design when you're trying to build a game. And this is a very tricky topic to discuss. Like for Shark and I, we play games at this level. Like this becomes easy for us to do, but it's very hard to kind of explain what we're looking at. And this is an essential skill for developers because, as we all know, people are inspired by the games they play. And it's very easy for someone to think, oh, if I just play 50 hours of Dark Souls, I can now design my own Dark Souls game. Or,
That's exactly how it works, isn't it?
Yeah. Or if you can beat Super Mario World, you are now a master platformer designer. And part of the challenge about being able to build a game, especially in today's market, is to understand that there are good and bad qualities of every genre. And if you're just copying somebody else's game, it will usually lead to trouble. I think that's a good point to start off with. So, for you, Shark, and I know we've talked about this before, why is it such a common trap to just basically copy and paste or rip off another game as a foundation for your title?
Because that's what mobile does. And we all know that mobile games are the best games ever, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have, I mean, we can't even start with Clash of Clans. We have to start with Clash of Clash, Clans of Clans, Clans of Clash, Clash of Clashes. We got to do
Clans of Clashes, too.
Yeah, we got Clans of Clashes. We got Clashes of. We got of Clashes. Clans. We have clan Clashes of. We have
There you go, David.
of right? We have clans. We have clashes. You know, and we're just scratching the surface here. You know, there are billions more.
And of course, if Neon Continuum blows up, you're going to be seeing Continuum Neon, Continuum Punk Neon.
Yeah. and millions of more.
And like we said, one of the easiest traps developer triple continuum. There we go. One of the easiest traps a lot of developers will fall into is to just examine the most popular game on the market and say, I'm just going to do this. And just like on our weird game segment, and whenever we look at a lot of games that come from like first-time developers, They will like say right on their store page, I was inspired by Mega Man, I was inspired by Mario or Dark Souls or FTL and so on. And almost immediately when we play these games, they feel like worse examples of those titles.
Yeah, because here's the truth. They weren't inspired by those games. They were inspired to rip off those games. There's a difference between being inspired by a game and being inspired to rip off a game.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, like somebody could be inspired to rip off a bank by just going in there and robbing it, kind of thing. Another person could be inspired by a bank and go make PayPal. There's a difference between just outright stealing and doing something based off of it. PayPal is based off of it. Bank robbery is stealing.
Yeah.
There's definitely a line there. And stealing is absolutely what you don't want to do.
Yeah.
Because stealing, number one, is going to be illegal on even if you go through like all the loopholes and just get it where it just barely skirts it, kind of thing. Thing is even if you can skirt all the legal problems, you're still going to have the issue with consumers see that game and they're going to be like, this is just a ripoff. This is just a cheap ripoff. And anybody who plays it is going to be like, this is just a bad version of the original game.
Yep.
That looks worse. And, we've always said that, do not make the same game but worse. Do not even make the same game but equal. Don't even make the same game that is slightly better. You've got to make the same game that is significantly better or different.
Yep.
And that's kind of my complaint about Satisfactory that we talked about earlier. Is like, I don't dislike Satisfactory, but it is the same game as Factorio, just worse. And it's first person, and that's it. It's not different. And it's not better. I mean, it has better graphics to it. It has first person, which some people like that more, but that's not being different. Changing the perspective is not making it different. You could have, people made first person, Among Us games, and they aren't different. They're exactly the same, just first person. Same thing goes with Factorio or Satisfactory. It's the same thing, but change in perspective. Changing, it's got better graphics to it too. Although the graphics, a lot of people give Factorio, harsh, for harshness for its graphics, but the graphics aren't bad. The reason why everybody thinks the graphics look bad is because every time somebody plays it, they're zoomed way out, because that is kind of the best way to play it, because the fact is you can see everything all at the same time. Well, within your range, kind of thing. And that's very, very key in certain parts of the game. But if you zoom in on it really close, like the assets look pretty dang decent. Like I could zoom into a lot of different games that would look way worse than that.
Yeah.
And
and
I'm talking about AAA games too.
And to a few comments that came up to a Rat's Tales comment about studying the mechanics, the dynamics, and the aesthetics of a game. Yes, that is very important, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in the coming minutes. And to Soren's comment, yeah, they did, Satisfactory, I think, did do pretty well. And again, a strong graphics, and this is something that I'm writing about in a post that's going up this week, that good art will get people to check out your game. Good game design will keep them from returning that game. So if your game has a really strong look right out of the gates, that's going to help it out tremendously.
Yeah. I would say that, to Rasto's point, I would say that Factorio is prettier than Industry, as a whole, like graphically.
Hmm.
But Ministry has a more simple art.
Yeah.
They're not as
It's
complex.
brighter. It pops out, I think, a little bit more in Ministry.
Yeah, they're going for more style with less substance. Where Factorio has all the substance, and when you zoom out, it gets muddied up because
Mm-hmm.
the details get muddied because you're zooming out. So it's got to, when you zoom out, you've got to combine pixels and all this other stuff, and it muddies it up when you do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So like, it makes it, when you zoom out, it looks worse. Yeah. I would, the Ministry definitely has more style where Factorio is going for realism, and Josh and I have said this many times, is realism, in graphics gets dated really, really quickly.
Yes, definitely.
Where style can, live forever.
Yeah. Again, like if you look at like Super Mario Galaxy, for instance, or even Super Mario Sunshine, it's a older Nintendo title, still holds up well from its look. Same goes for the Rats Beat Me Too. I was just about to say Wind Waker. What was another one I was just thinking about? Auction Not Included. As we said, Auction Not Included is not the best looking game, but it has such a strong aesthetic to it that it really elevates the look of it.
Mm-hmm. And then we look at, games around that time, other AAA games that, like all of these first-person shooters, all these games that were going for realistic graphics, and man, they look like absolute garbage now.
Oh yes, first and second generation 3D is very painful to look at these days.
Unless you look at something that's been stylized, like Valkyria Chronicles looked still beautiful. Yeah. The Mario games look really good.
Yeah.
The Zelda games that went for style look really good.
Yeah. The first and second Call of Duties, not so well.
Mm-hmm.
You have Crash Bandicoot. And
anything that went for style holds up. The realism doesn't. And that's kind of the bad thing about Factorio, is because they're going for realism. But like it makes sense in that world. I wouldn't say, hey, you should change that kind of thing. But it is definitely going to get dated. It's but like that doesn't make it not look good, because it is good looking art.
Yeah. But to bring this back on topic, that when we look at developers who will copy another game, as we've said, part of the challenge of this is that you're not really looking at what the work was that went into this game. And this is the challenge when it comes to analyzing a game's design. That if you just look at the very best examples, you're not catching the mistakes they make. And another big point about this is the difference between watching footage of a game and playing it. And this is something that I've gone to arguments about with people on Twitter about, game preservation, being able to use emulation and ROMs to play older titles. That it is important to play these games. And I think part of the issue that we see some developers run into is that if you just watch footage of somebody playing a game, even if it's Grandmaster level footage, that's not the same as actually sitting there and playing a title.
Yeah. I mean, if you're really, really good at breaking down mechanics and everything, you can't get everything, but you can get a lot of stuff from watching somebody. But a lot of stuff is not all the stuff.
Yeah. It's kind of like watching a professional race car driver and saying, oh, I can do that easily, and then getting behind the wheel is a far different story.
And I picture Josh, going in there and he barely taps the gas, and he's like, oh no, and then he just idles for the entire track.
No, the second I put my foot on the pedal, the car's going to explode, or it will just immediately crash into something.
It'll probably crash and explode.
And this is one of the things, and like to bring or to move this along, that once you have a genre, yeah, exactly, David. That once you have a genre that you want to build a game around, you need to start looking at examples of this. And when we say examples, we mean good and bad. And like I said, there's a tendency from, I think, a lot of newer developers to just play the best examples. And again, we see this when people mention the games they're inspired by. Which, if I'm making a roguelike, I'm going to say it's inspired by The Binding of Isaac, Dead Cells, FTL, and they'll just name drop as many famous games that they looked at.
Mm-hmm.
But
and so you need to play many different instances of games around your thing. You don't, I think some of the issue with the 100% clones kind of thing, some of it's them just stealing it, but others, I think what it is when they're taking inspiration, they're only taking it from that single game. So they're just basically it's like, oh, well, they did a system like this. We'll do a system that's pretty much exactly the same of it, but slightly different. And then they do all this, and it looks and feels like the exact same game, just worse.
Yeah, I mean,
or slightly better.
How many deck builder / TCG games have we looked at on our show that look like they're just ripping off Hearthstone or ripping off Gwent or Magic or whatever?
Yeah, a lot, and I'm currently designing a card game, and, I've looked at so many games. First of all, I didn't even have to technically look at any card games because, I've looked at so many of them, and I've already dissected the design of so many of them. I got into Magic the Gathering back in, I think it was 1997, which is probably before some of you were even born here. So I was playing back in Unlimited, Beta and Ice Age kind of deal. There was, those were my sets kind of thing. And, played a lot of that. And, definitely dissected a lot of that design and whatnot from early days Magic. Then I went and played other card games after that. I think I quit around the 2000s or something. I can't remember what game I went after that, but I remember at some point, actually I think the next one might have been Dragon Ball Z. I went to a Dragon Ball Z card game. Then I ended up at some point barely picking up Yu-Gi-Oh! Just because there was nothing better to do, and I watched a bunch of people play Pokemon, the Pokemon card game. I played more Magic the Gathering, and I played bunches and bunches of these games over the years. But when I started working on, Neon Continuum, I was like, okay, I'm going to take all of my past knowledge, try to remember all of it, and at the same time, I'm going to build on top of that. At the same time of, refresh my memory kind of thing. And I was not. That's not when I started playing games. I started playing games in 1980.
Yeah, me too.
But so I went and went back into Hearthstone, and the train wreck it is. But I seen some things in there that I liked, but I've seen lots and lots of things I did not like. Went into I started making games in 2004. Went into Magic the Gathering, found tons of things that I really liked in there. There was a lot of things I really liked about that. And I played that one for a while. I only played Hearthstone for, I think it was 4 or 5 days, which was an agonizing 4 or 5 days. but I suffered through it.
Yeah.
And I played the Magic the Gathering, I think, for probably about 6 months or maybe even longer than that. A while. And then I played, like there's this grid-based card game. I forget the name of it. I think it started with the D. Can't remember the name of it. Played, several other card games. I played, Slay the Spire, Monster Train, the roguelike ones, played like all of the ones that I could easily get access to.
Yeah.
And then after all that, like I had a good foundation of it. But that was not it. That was not the end of my research kind of thing. After that, it's like, let me, like the core of the theme is going to be cyberpunk. Like it's a sci-fi game with, cyberpunk. It's got time travel, sci-fi military, aliens and machines. Like they're all equal kind of thing. But the world where the story takes place, that all these 5 deck types come together in, is a cyberpunk world, because that's the only world that makes sense for all 5 of them to be together. So I was like, well, let me research cyberpunk, because I need to find out what it is. And, through my examination of like, I don't know, like probably like I watched probably like 200, 300, 400 movies on cyberpunk. I've watched, probably about 20 or 30 different anime series on it. I've watched probably about 200-300 anime movies on it. Watched probably about 5 or 6 TV shows, full TV shows on it. Watched, a lot of things. And the result that I came up with is that cyberpunk is not even defined as a genre. You can look at it like an action game, action genre, and you know what it is. It's going to be, intense action. It's going to be shooting, or stabbing, or some kind of combat, and it's going to be very heavily oriented on the combat kind of thing. Cyberpunk, not so much. Like half of them had neons. Maybe more than half of them had neons. Maybe like 60% of them had neons, like everywhere. The other 40% didn't even have a single neon in the entire thing. Not even an open sign kind of thing that you see on every building. Did not even have that. Some of them had, like probably 60% of them had like a dystopian, government, or corporation taking over everything. The other, like 40% had nothing to do with anything government, politics, or any of that. And like you can go through like all of them, and there is not one common thread between all of them. Not even one.
Yep.
The only common thread is that it's cyberpunk. But it's a undefined genre.
Yeah. And to Ratsail's comment earlier about the other deck builder, were you thinking of Dream Quest that began with a D? And
No.
I'll see what he says there. and again, like when you're trying to look at different genres or look at games, one of the reasons why we say you need to study bad titles, and specifically you need to study what doesn't work in a game. And you'll find those elements even in good titles. Again, when you become critical of games, you're going to find something to complain about no matter what. But you have a greater chance of spotting these traps when you're playing lesser quality games. And this is one of the reasons why you always have to look at these titles. Because if somebody else has made a mistake, chances are you're going to make that mistake if you don't know anything about it.
Yep. Any mistake that you don't know of, you're going to likely walk right into it. It's a landmine. If you don't know that it's there, you're likely going to step on it.
Yeah.
Especially in game dev, where everywhere is landmines.
There you go. There's another nice quote here about game development.
Game dev. It's landmines everywhere. And if you don't know where they are, you're going to step on them.
Yeah. And
to Rastel's point, the Final Fantasy TCG? Are you talking about Triple Triad? Are you talking about Terra Master? Or are you talking about something else?
There's like, I think like 7 different Final Fantasy mobile games, I think, on the market right now. Huh.
I'm not aware of those.
Mm.
But Triple Triad was the original inspiration for Neon Continuum.
Mm-hmm.
It's most of my inspiration came from Triple Triad, which is a mini game in Final Fantasy VIII, and Magic the Gathering with a hint of Hearthstone and a hint of several other games hinted in there, and then some original stuff popped in there, and everything's tied together in such a neat and packaged way.
Yeah. And when we look at games, both good and bad, going back to what Horacio was saying earlier about mechanics, dynamics, and aesthetics, it's very hard, I think, when we sit here to kind of put into words what we focus on when we look at a title. And I've said this before, when I analyze a game, there are 3 things that I tend to look at, and then I'm going to throw this to you, Shar, and see if you have anything different. The first thing that I look at is, what is the core gameplay loop of this title going to be? Is it a racing game? Is it a card battle? Or is it a platformer? Whatever. I then look at, did the developer kind of succeed in keeping this core gameplay loop working? And this goes back to that game I was talking about with the Beast Inside, that if your core gameplay loop is survival horror, and I get stuck at a code-breaking puzzle for 20 minutes, something is not working here. Or if I get stuck at a very janky FPS boss fight. Mm-hmm. And then the third thing I look at is there enough here that's going to motivate somebody to play a game through all the way to the end? And that is very hard to do, and why, again, we see so much drop-off in a lot of the games that we play, that it'll go from 80% people playing down to 40%. And a lot of people will not understand what just happened. Why did I just lose 40% of my consumer base?
Yeah. I never look for those specific things because I look at it from a very, very different angle of view. What I look at it as is like, I look at every single mechanic, every single stat. What exactly does that stat do? How does that stat affect the combat? And I'm sitting here breaking everything down basically in a way to min-max the game, right? And I'm seeing, breaking it down, seeing what the min-max strategies are, or what I think they are, going for them kind of thing, and just min-maxing the hell out of a game. And in the process, it's like, okay, this mechanic works like this one works like this, and I'm seeing all these individual mechanics, and while I can't program for squat kind of thing, is basically giving me the equivalent of programming in my head kind of thing. Like, this is this script, this is this script, and these are tied in together this way kind of thing. And I get to see like all the mechanics and how they all tie in and spider web together, and how each one of these affect each other kind of thing, and how that causes the balance to go which direction kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it would probably become that way at the beginning, but like once basically I started doing this, like, I don't know, like way back in like the early 2000s, if not, in the 90s kind of thing, if not even before that. And once I started doing it kind of thing, my brain just went on autopilot and just started analyzing everything. And it got to the point where I could not turn it off kind of thing.
Yeah, that's how I am now today.
Yeah, and once I couldn't turn it off, then it's just automatic. I just, break down all the mechanics like that. Just, it's just automatic. And it's hard to explain now because it's automatic kind of thing. But I think analyzing for min-maxing is where I started to get that from. It's like, I want to play this game and I want to do the best I can. So I'm going to min max the heck out of it. Like the old, what do they call them? BBOS or something? The old, basically where MMOs came from.
The MUDs?
Yeah, MUDs. And there was something before the MUDs or after the MUDs called BB something.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember.
BBS, but bulletin board systems?
Yeah, I think might be it. I thought it was more letters than that, though. But yeah, like I would play MUDs and the other BB something, and I would min max the heck out of it. Like I remember playing Legend of the Green Dragon, if anybody remembers that one.
Mm.
And I built a character that was in the lamest race kind of thing. Like I really hated the race, but like I found the most OP combination because I think it was a fairy race. I think it was, and the fairy race got a percentage boost to both its attack and its defense power based off of your charm. And charm is, not easy to get a hold of, kind of thing. So usually it was balanced in a way that you could get like 10 or 15 of it, and then it would be a so kind of thing. But I found a way to get all the charm. So like I got like, I think it was something like a few thousand charm. So my multiplier on my stats was insane. And like, even, and the way that game works is you go up to level 15 and then you get reincarnated and then you get one permanent stat kind of thing. And based off of how many reincarnations you get, that's basically your sort of game level, not character level, but game level, because there's 15 levels to get to that point.
Mm-hmm.
But like there was people that had like, 300, 400, 500 game levels kind of thing. And I sit there only had like maybe 50 or so. But with the fairy setup that I had, man, I would just go into PvP and wreck these people that had all the game things because I min-maxed the heck out of it. But getting that analysis, doing all that analysis, that's research. That is the analysis you do to min-max a game. That is an analysis that will break apart the mechanics of the game. And when you're breaking apart to those bite-sized chunks, to where you know what this one thing does and you know exactly how it does it and you know where the corresponding stuff that connects to it, like not just knowing that you get charm for this thing, but knowing that where to get charm and how to get a lot of charm, a lot more than the game developers intended for you to get, kind of thing. And all these other things, and seeing that you can start connecting the dots, and once you can you connect all the dots, then you come up with a giant spider web that is the entire game design. You have the game document at that point stored in your brain.
And like we've said, like once you're able to start doing this, it becomes a lot easier just to repeat it. Again, like for myself, I can't turn it off either. I will, I examine even the games that I love. I will try and pick apart their designs. And this is one of the things that we've said. Like, there's a difference between playing a video game and studying a video game. And
dissecting it.
Yeah. And it's very important to kind of pinpoint those differences. Like, when I look at big name streamers or big name YouTubers who play video games, I really don't care what they have to say about video games. Because just playing a game, even if you play the same game for 500, 1,000 hours, 2,000 hours, it's your career, that doesn't mean you can actually put into words or actually understand what is going on behind the scenes of it.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is I had a conversation earlier today about somebody talking about getting into YouTube to do game reviews. And I mentioned that our conversation about how, a lot of YouTubers and whatnot that do reviews don't actually know what they're talking about. Or they only know a fraction of what they're talking about, kind of thing, and how they shouldn't be reviewing these games because they're not qualified to. And that pretty much, as far as I know, there are no good game reviewers other than Josh here, which Josh generally doesn't do game reviews.
Yeah, I typically just analyze these games.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, probably the closest, and I've said this before, would be people who speedrun titles. Like, people who play games at that level tend to understand what is going on behind the scenes. And I think that's a very important point. That
But yeah, because like speedrunners have dissected the mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
They've min-maxed it kind of thing because they have to for the speedruns.
Yeah.
So they're doing this analysis and breaking down to this thing and getting these spiderweb of mechanics in their brain.
Yeah. They're looking, it's essentially, as we said before, it's about understanding what's going on behind the curtain, or, the man behind the curtain kind of analogy. That what's happening on screen isn't because, the game hates you, or, the game is stupid, or I see a lot of YouTubers who scream when they play these video games. It's about understanding that there are machinations going on that's determining what's happening. And it's also why we see kind of the difference between people who play, very linear titles versus people who understand roguelike strategy and 4X design. That they understand that what's happening is not some random chain of events, or, the game is hating them, and that's why, they're failing. They understand that what they're doing is affecting, the numbers and the code behind the scenes that they can then go on and exploit. And again, going back to Shark's comment about min-maxing, that it is about understanding that, and also that's what he said earlier, that most games are not 100% balanced, because 100% balance is usually not achievable.
And sometimes it's boring if it's done. But, that doesn't mean you shouldn't be necessarily trying for, making it balanced as possible kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like for my current game, there's a portion of Neon Continuum that is 100% balanced. And it's the most important part to have balance, because when you're talking about trying to avoid pay to win, and all that kind of thing, what's the number one way to become pay to win?
Yeah.
It's the being unbeatable. If you have something that's unbeatable, then if you got that card, you win, or you can at least push towards that win. If you have enough of those, then you win, kind of thing.
And if it's only available through purchasing, yes. Like, there's no way you could ever earn it as a free player. Yeah, that's kind of very much pay to win. And again, to bring this back to our discussion, that there are a lot of games that don't understand what pay to win means.
Mm-hmm. Well, the thing I did was, or the thing we did as a studio kind of thing, is we perfectly balanced the defense. Like, no card is stronger than the other card when it comes to defending, because whenever it comes to defending, the color doesn't matter. The color goes to the attacker. And because if you have greater than, less than, equal to on both sides, then you run into issues.
Yeah.
Because something that's greater than fighting something that's less than, they both win.
Yeah.
But the thing is that there's 9 stats, 1 through 9, and no matter what stat the opponent has, kind of thing, there are always one number equal to it, aka yellow, equals to, and then 8 numbers that are either greater than or less than to it. So there's always 9 stats that can beat every single card, no more, no less. So it is 100% equal balance in defending. So that puts that 100% on equal terms, which makes nothing remotely unbeatable.
And I want to go back to a comment like Rat said earlier about being able to understand what the core gameplay loop or the core mechanic of a game is. And this is something, again, like that I see a lot of YouTubers kind of fail on. That, on one hand, you can be too minimal in your discussion. Like a 2 minute review of a game, I think is just utterly worthless. I mean, imagine if my talks are 2 minutes long. We would never be able to get anything done. But conversely, too much is also an issue. I see some people who do like an hour and a half to 3 hour essay on a specific topic or a specific game. And I feel like that's also another trap that we see people fall into. That if I just spend a lot of time on something, but if I'm just, meandering around or not really getting to a point, that's also not good analysis.
Mm-mm. Yeah, you got to bring up the points, and you got to know which ones to bring up.
Yeah.
Don't bring up all the pain points, or at least all the big enough pain points, kind of thing. Like a game may not have a big enough pain point to really, like talk about it. But like if it is that kind of situation, probably bring them up anyway. Be like, hey, I know this is splitting hairs, but this is like, the only problems I can find, kind of thing. Like I brought that up with hardcore mecha because there was no real complaints I had, kind of thing. Like there was the main problems. The only problems I had were just nitpicks. It's a little bit button heavy. There were parts of the font that was too small, that made it hard to read. That I had to go closer to my screen for, and there was a lot of controls and a lot of buttons, kind of thing.
Yeah, and I can't pronounce your name, MJ. I read A Theory of Fun, Chris Crawford on game design. I read one of Ernest Adams' books, and I don't remember the exact title. I think it had game design in it. I just don't remember what exactly it was.
And to Paul, as that's a very incomplete kind of there's not much there as telling us
there's not really a core gameplay in that discussion.
Yeah, other than it's a role-playing game. And it sounds like it could be an interesting concept and everything, but there's not enough there to kind of go off of at this point.
It's kind of like when we had that discussion about it's different between me saying I have an idea for a video game, it's survival horror, and leaving it at that, versus saying I have an idea for a survival horror game that's built on a procedurally generated space that features roguelike elements. Like, you have to...
Very, very... doesn't tell much.
Yeah. And this is why it's very important to understand what a core gameplay loop is and how to be able to properly explain it. That, going back to what I was saying earlier about how I study games, that once I find the core gameplay loop of a title, I then start to kind of go laser focus on what elements are either helping or distracting from that core gameplay loop. And this is why I spend a lot of time on UI and UX. Because those things will distract from playing your game. And if there are elements that distract from playing it, that's going to bring a game down. And I think this is a very important point about, again, why you need to study bad games. Because bad games are going to push you away from them. That's why they didn't get rated so high, or why they are considered bad. And if you can understand why you don't like something in a game, you're going to understand why hundreds or even thousands of people don't like that in a game. And this is, again, the dangers of extreme fandom. That people who will just say, oh, it's the greatest game ever, don't change anything, that gives you nothing to go on.
Mm-hmm. And you made a really good point that I think we really need to spend some time on about the mechanics that the stuff that does not fit, the clashes you have in there, because this is both research and game design at the same time. So I think we really need to harp on this for a little bit, because if you let's first define what a game designer is. A game designer is not an idea person. He's not the one that's coming up with, oh, let's do that idea. Let's do that idea. usually the ideas come from rest of the team and all this other part, and people and fans and all this other stuff. But like that's not the game designer. The game designer may have some of those ideas, may come up with the first several, who knows, But what the game designer's job is he's a problem solver. He is trying to link the mechanics in such a way that everything works as intended and should, there shouldn't be any stopping points. Yeah. This mechanic should tie in perfectly to this mechanic. It should not be jarring. It shouldn't feel like a different game. It should feel all part of the same thing. It should not take you out of the experience. It should be a continuous experience all the way through. And each of these things should build on top of each other. It's like and you're building a spider web, but it's hard to explain a spider web. So let's put it down into more simple terms, like building a house. It's like if you're building this brick on top of this brick on top of this brick, and then you put a brick out in the yard and then put another brick on it, it's not going to work. It's not going to feel good. It's going to be horrible. And in the end, you're going to have a hole in that house where those bricks in the yard are at.
At the end of the day, the designer's role is you have to, as Shark said, you have to make everything work. These elements have to come together to make a cohesive project or a cohesive product. When I spoke to a developer a few years ago, they put this best, that video games are a combination of programming and entertainment. And you have to be able to put them all together if you want to make a product. This is why it's very dangerous to listen to nothing but fans. Because it gets into that whole issue, too many cooks in the kitchen. That, if you just put everything in that people say without caring why it should go there, then imagine like building a house that is like 8 different styles. Each room is its own unique look with different paint jobs. Yes, it's a house. Would it be a house you want to live in?
Nope. Nobody will want to live in that house.
Yeah.
Even though everybody had a hand in making it.
Yeah. And this is often why we see developers who they'll say, I listen to everybody, I just listen to everything what my fans say. I put it all in my game. Why is anyone buying this?
Because nobody wants a hodgepodge of a game.
True, David.
I know I have these dev chats every month and everything, and and I get feedback other times besides the dev chats kind of thing. But I get feedback from all my community and whatnot. And when they suggest stuff, I look at it through that problem setting thing. Will this fit in? Will it mesh in well? Will it, fit and everything? And when it does, and I'm like, yes, this would be an improvement to all my other systems kind of thing. And it would not be out of scope, something we cannot do kind of thing. When it fits all those criteria, when it fits, it'll work. It's not going to be more work than what it's worth for us to put it in. When it fits all those, that's when I bring, I was like, okay, let's put this into the game kind of thing. But whenever it doesn't, I drop it, because it's like, that wouldn't work because of X. That wouldn't work because of Y. That would be really nice and really awesome to put in, but it's not going to add a whole terrible lot to the game, and it's going to add a whole terrible lot of work to it.
Yeah. And this is why so much of goes into successful games, and this is probably beyond the scope of our talk, is about the project management side. Understanding that, yes, an idea may be cool, but if it takes you 10 additional months of development and maybe only affects 3% of your fans, that's not the best thing to do. And I want to get to Amir's comment and to Rat's Tale about studying theme and mechanics. That when I spoke with a few tabletop developers, they did say that they want to focus on theme first, because a lot of tabletop design is about, I guess, physicality of playing that table and, understanding how somebody responds to it. When we talk about video games, again, there is no one size fits all approach to game design. If you want to focus on theme first and mechanics second, you could build a very story driven game. If you want to be more mechanically driven, we see developers who will approach things from, wouldn't it be cool if a game does this? And then they think about how the story would fit in if there is a story after the fact.
Mm-hmm. Everything needs to mesh well together, know. And that's one thing I'm very thankful of being both the game designer as well as the writer, because then I can work with myself and make sure all of those mesh together.
You can fight with yourself there.
Yeah. The thing about, the thing about games is what makes up the final product. Well, we know what you see. What you interact with, rather. You in the final product, you see the effects of the programming. You see the visuals of the art, and you hear the audio. But those are all surface level things.
Mm-hmm.
What actually makes up the experience of the game is the game design and the writing. So, like, if you mess up on the game design or writing, everything else is going to be messed up after that. Because basically, the game design is, well, if we were to put this in architectural terms, the game design is the blueprint.
Mm-hmm.
If your blueprints are jank, and the programmer follows your exact blueprints, and the artist does, and the musician does, then you're going to end up with this jank house that's on the blueprints.
Mm-hmm.
And the writing, I guess that would be the family that moves in. If they're fighting and arguing constantly, it's not going to be a good experience once you move into that house. But if they're cool people that you want to live with, then yeah, that'll be a good experience, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But being, you're talking about the experience that you get during and the experience that that is going to shape everything, where the programming just translates everything into actual function. He's basically the translator or the builder kind of thing. The artist is the interior decorator and exterior decorator, landscaping and whatnot. And the musician is that that guy you wish you followed you around and played theme music every place you walked.
Mm-hmm. And I do want to stay on this idea of playing bad games, because, again, it's very hard to put in words what we're looking at. And I'll get to Paul's comment in a second as well, because I think that's another really good point. Mm-hmm. That when we look at bad games, or even just anything that annoys you, it's very important to understand that. We see this commonly in, again, critical and commercial darlings, that people will not discuss, anything bad about them. Like, again, like the coverage of Where the Water Tastes Like Wine, for instance, would be a really good example. And again, this is the difference between game reviewing and game analysis. That there are people who wrote so many reviews of that game talking about how emotionally driven the story was, how they fell in love with the characters. That's great. That tells us nothing about design. And when we play that game, within 10 minutes, everybody who was watching the stream was going, yeah, we got some problems here with this game. And you have to be able to look at why these aspects are hurting this title. And it does come out sometimes as attacking a game. And again, why I get people are hating on me for my Spelunky 2 review or analysis of that game. But
well, the saying, the truth hurts.
Yes. And
but, yeah, I mean the whole design of that game, there's so many things off. And you have to criticize games. Like and well, you don't have to, but if you're going to review a game, you have to criticize it, and you have to criticize it for legit reasons. Don't just criticize it for the sake of criticizing it because you don't want false criticism. You need accurate criticism, and for that, it requires analyzing the design and whatnot, and not just, I guess, going fanboy and just, I like this, and there's nothing wrong with this game.
Yeah. And it is tough because there is a difference between complaining about something because it's an issue and complaining about something because you don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
And that is very, very hard to do. There are a lot of games that I look at on stream that I don't like. They're not genres that I enjoy. But I can still understand why somebody would like to play this game. And you have to be able to, again, look at what was the goal of this design. Is this supposed to be a first-person shooter about, Twitch super high micro and APM play? Does this game succeed in that front? And it is very tricky to put into words why something works and something doesn't. One of the big arguments would be the whole Marauder of Doom Eternal. That, I really like that design, but at the same vein, I understood why people didn't like it. And again, it's kind of that trickiness of talking about game design that it's very easy for me to talk about, the analysis of a game. It's hard for me to put into words how I analyze a game.
Yeah. And that's a point I want to go back to about what you said about, what they intended the game to be.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's my main problem with Dystopia, or Dismantled rather.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's meant to be a crafting survival game, but it's not a crafting survival game. There is, it's, like if you look at it from the point of view of it being a crafting survival game, it's a freaking train wreck. The combat system is jank. The crafting system is nothing but grind and very linear with no real variance. No like, oh, I can go craft this or I can go craft this. It's like, no, you got to do this one thing or else you're going to be really horrible at it.
Yep, and again, like when I was playing it, I liked it, but I also said, this is not a survival crafting game. It's just not. And again, this is one of the points about analyzing games. That if your goal is, let's say, to build, let's say your goal is to build a 3D action game. And your 3D action game is all about turn-based, deck-building combat. Guess what? You didn't build a 3D action game, even if your game is in 3D. And you have to, again, be able to study what makes a genre work and what makes it doesn't work. This is why we say that, Blizzard, in their heyday, was one of the best development studios out there. Because they did that. There's a reason, why World of Warcraft came out and it blew up so well. It wasn't the first MMO. It was the first MMO to be done as highly elevated and iterated as one could have done back then.
Yeah.
And to MJ's point, I would say, like, for me, I didn't really start to do this until probably 2012, 2013, when I really started to get busy with Game Wisdom, and I started to do more developer interviews that really helped me in terms of understanding what it meant to look at design.
I don't know when I started it, but it was definitely at least at the bare minimum 2000. I don't know at what point when it became automatic.
Yeah.
But, it's just and I'm sure that whoever it is, whether it's you or anybody else, is going to have a different rate of learning it kind of thing. But just start it and, whenever it fully develops kind of thing.
And yeah, it just comes with time, but it also comes with being able to understand this kind of stuff. Because again, just sitting there and playing a video game for 100 hours, that doesn't really help you. And again, part of it, I think the first step is, I think what Shark said, is about min-maxing. It's about understanding that there is more going on in this game than you just running around killing enemies or, watching loot pile up. It's about understanding why these things work, what they're doing. What was that?
How they work.
Yep, how they work. And understanding, what is keeping you invested in this game.
Mm-hmm. And we got to go back to Paul's point here about, what do you guys think of indie devs making a trade-off for lower quality graphics due to not access to a great artist, so they go for a more stylized or an older look? Well, we need to make a clarification there, because like older and stylized isn't lower graphics.
Mm-hmm.
Lower graphics would be low quality. Mm-hmm. Because like it doesn't matter if they're doing pixel art, 2D, 3D, low poly, high poly, anything like that. Like no, that doesn't matter. That doesn't apply to any of it, because like that is just the type of graphics, not the quality or anything else.
The aesthetics of it.
Yeah. Now then, the true aesthetics, though, the real, like meat and potatoes of aesthetics, is how each of those graphics looks. Like you can have, like, there's plenty of games from the NES that you can go back to today and look at it and be like, God, that looks freaking horrible.
Mm-hmm.
And you can go to others and you're like, oh man, that is so beautiful, and it holds up even today. Well, guess what? The ones that are so beautiful and hold up today, those pixel art games have really good aesthetics.
Yep.
The ones that don't hold up do not have good aesthetics. Yep. So it's not the style or the graphics type. Mm-hmm. It's the aesthetic of that graphic. And if you trade that off, you're trading off commercial success. Because if your game is not aesthetically pleasing, then every bit of marketing you do, everybody you go out and tell, they're going to look at this game and be like, that's not a good game. I don't care. Yeah. And every marketing person, everything you do is going to fall on deaf ears. So even if you spend $10 billion marketing the game through all these ads and everything, you're probably going to be lucky to have 10 people play it.
Yeah.
Because people will not go for that in the current market.
Yep. And in a piece that's going to go up, I think, this week, I talked about how there's a difference between people who will use art or use their models simply as assets in this game. They're not really thinking about how things look aesthetically, versus those who work within that space. There's again, as Shark just said, there's a huge difference in pixel art. Like, if you look at something like Shovel Knight, for instance, Shovel Knight holds up really well. It's a very clean look. Everything is very detailed for that specific aesthetic. But we have played plenty of pixel art style games that, like maybe the character's, eyeball is, an inch ahead of the character's face. It doesn't even look like a person. And it just looks like a mess of, blocks and pixels. And the thing is,
LJN games.
Yeah. Like, for a lot of people, they'll look at this and go, what's the big deal? But subconsciously, you're going to start to think about this looking very horrible. Like, something's not right about this game. And you, like we said, a major part of game development is mitigating all the risks that go into game design. And guess what? Game design is very risky. Mm-hmm. And I think we use the Russian roulette example, that if your game has horrible art, everything is mismatched, it's kind of like putting 5 bullets into a 6-cylinder revolver, or a 6-shot revolver, and hoping that...
It's more like putting 999 bullets into a 1,000-shot revolver.
Mm-hmm. And hoping the one you get is the one that's free.
Yeah.
And
we have like if we look at 2D art, like there are bad examples, really bad examples of that. Does it come off your off the top of your mind, Josh, of some bad examples that's more well-known bad examples that people might have heard of from someplace?
That Showdown, Beatdown, and Treachery City. That game that we played was like a RPG Final Fight game. Really saw to me in terms of its pixel art.
I was talking about 2D, not pixel art. Well, let me give you the good example while Josh is trying to think of that one. Ori is an amazing example of 2D really done well. No matter how much we joke about Ori being the ugly game, but Ori is the ugly game, right? It's both the good game and the bad game. So we'll put that as the bad game and let Josh can think of the bad example.
Yeah, and like a lot of the ones that like come to my mind are like first time indie developers trying to work in pixel. Like here's an example of a game that kind of worked. Let me look up the name really fast.
We probably had several games that we looked at in the spotlight that were in the weird game segment rather that were fitting the exact bad that we were talking about.
Yeah. Here's if you look up the game The Last Door. This is a game that is entirely pixel art. It was also done as a game before Blasphemous. This is a game developers did before that one. Yes, I did, Pony. Thanks for noticing. And The Last Door is entirely pixel driven. Like you know this is pixel art. And it's done in a very low quality style to a very lo-fi. But everything looks like it fits within this space. Like, imagine if this was pixel art for the character, and the background was like low 3D. It would be an entire mismatch and look very horrible.
Oh yeah.
And again, part of what we talk about in terms of presentation is making sure that everything fits within this space. And one of the surefire signs when a game is bad, or when you can start analyzing it, is when it doesn't fit, and you start to see, the tears in the design.
Yeah, we can look at my last game, Chromasia, the Word of the Day, and that game, like the art was not bad in it. The it wasn't great either, but like it wasn't bad. The main issue was that they mismatched. I had, one style on some of the like almost everything that was not plant life. You could look at it and you would see blocks of colors, globs of colors where there was multiple, of the same blue right beside each other, same, red or same whatever color right beside each other, same brown. But then when you looked at my trees, my bushes, my grass and everything, like every pixel was a different color. And they were, there was no same color beside each other. It was just all chaotic, basically. And when you combine the two, like if you had done the entire game like that, the every pixel is different, or if you've done it every game, your game where every where you have the blocks of pixels, it would have probably looked pretty good. Not great, but it would have probably looked pretty good. Yeah. But as it was mismatched, it looked freaking horrible. Like I could have, like if I just done one or the other, pretty good. Like I could have definitely done a lot better. But like when you put the two pretty goods together, it made a freaking horrible. Yeah. And that freaking horrible caused all my marketing to fall on its face and destroyed the entire game, and only ended up with 27 sales before the company was ready to have to shut it down, kind of thing.
Yeah. And here's another example. Look up The Dark Side Detective. This is another pixel art game, Completely different style compared to the last store. But once again, when you look at the screenshots, it all works. It all fits that theme. It looks good. And like we said, all these little clashes always end up leading to bigger issues. And this is, I think, another big point that we haven't mentioned yet. When we talk about games that fail in their design or bad games, it's never one thing. It is never going to be just one thing that dooms an entire game. But what we find is that if there's one issue, there's going to be two issues. And then it's going to be three issues. And it leads into just this cascading effect of problems.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to turn to Game and Chat and Amir's comment from earlier. Amir saying about not about how Scorsese says he misses the magic of cinema, and that there's more enjoyment for him and understanding on a deeper level. And yes, that is the same way for myself. And again, people will argue when I talk critically about a game that I'm just hating the game, or I'm just trying to find issues with it, or I don't like the game. But I think people will agree that I am very much, I think, more positive about overall games. I think a lot of people would say otherwise. That you don't see me yelling or, just nitpicking a game to death.
Yeah. And the thing is that a criticism as a whole is technically a negative thing, because it's this thing doesn't work kind of thing. And that's just a fact, But that doesn't mean we mean it in a negative way.
Mm-hmm.
It means that here's information for you to get better. When you go to school and everything, they give you grades on the work and show you which problems you messed up on so that you can get better.
Mm-hmm.
You can learn from your mistakes, kind of thing.
And I think that's another really big point before I jump into Mr. Game and Chat, that you have to be, the reason why we say this is important is that you have to be able to learn from your mistakes. Another trap I see developers fall into is that they just keep making the same game. And like I said, I spoke to developers, this was 10, 12 years ago, who would say their advice was, just make video games. And some people will point to stuff like Angry Birds or Five Nights at Freddy's. The developers spent a long time making games until they found one that worked. But here's the difference. They kept changing their games. They kept experimenting and learning from their previous titles. So that when they did get that hit came off the backs of who knows how many dozens or hundreds of prototypes and failed games that they eventually struck gold with. And again, they had to understand why their other games failed before they could find the one that didn't fail.
I know exactly why the saying just make games came from.
Mm-hmm.
Because that used to be legitimately good advice.
Yeah.
Back 10 years ago, before the Steam store was flooded, because so many people listened to them, made all these games, and now the market is flooded, and now that doesn't work.
Yeah.
That does not work in the least.
And to your point there, that 10, 15 years ago, getting a game out there, getting any game out there is, major good job. 2 thumbs up, gold stars for you.
Mm-hmm.
Today, I hate to say this, people don't care.
Mm-hmm.
They don't care that you spent 10 years of your life and took out 3 mortgages on your home to get this game out. They care that your game looks horrible and is very bad to play, and they're going to downvote it.
Mm-hmm. Because, while that was good advice then, that's not good advice now.
Mm-hmm.
And the stuff we're saying, 10 years down the road will probably not be good advice either. So if you're listening to this in,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, 2030, probably most of the things we said today was wrong, but right here, right now,
Mm-hmm.
this is right.
And if you are from the future watching this, if there is any apocalypses coming, please send help. Send us a time traveler.
Well, maybe that was the problem to begin with.
Uh-oh. Man. And, yeah, but when you are just making the same game, and there are a few developers that I've seen this, that, yeah, true, rats, that they'll just keep making the same exact game. Or maybe instead of it being a 2D platformer, it's a 2D action adventure game, or vice versa. If you saw that game that I played a few weeks ago from that developer, like, their whole thing is making these 2D platform, Castlevania, Metroidvania style games. And when I play them, I'm seeing the same problems from game 1 to game 2. That's not how you build a successful company or build a successful studio. If your first game you have problem A, I shouldn't see that problem in game B or in game number 2.
Yeah, you have to learn from your mistakes. And
Exactly.
to learn from your mistakes, you need criticism, which, while, on its base level is negative, so is missing a problem on your homework. Learning from your mistakes. Making a mistake is bad, And if you got to be perfect right out the gate, guess what? Nobody gets anything done, because nothing exists. Cell phones don't exist because, the first cell phone was not the Android, zebra cake, whatever, or whatever they call it, the last Android kind of thing, the perfect one, that probably won't come for 20 million years from now.
Yeah.
The first cell phone was the first cell phone. And compared to even phones today, that phone is absolute garbage.
Yeah.
But back in the day, that was amazing. But the thing is there were so many problems with it. It didn't have all the functions. It didn't have all the reliability. It didn't have battery life. Didn't have, range. It had all kinds of shortcomings. But they found those shortcomings. They learned those shortcomings, those fatal flaws, and then they corrected them. Which was them taking criticism to change the way the things work.
And this again is the dangers of if you only listen to your fandom, because the fans, they love you. They don't care, that, let's say, your inventory is hard to figure out, or that the beginning of your game is annoying. They're gonna love you regardless.
Or your family. You need people who, will have no problems calling you out. Of course, you can build a fan base that will call you out, kind of thing. But you have to make sure that it's a fan base that you make it very clear that you welcome being called out on anything and everything. And that's what I've done and still doing, kind of thing, with my community on my Discord, because I absolutely want them to be critical of my stuff, like as critical as possible, because the more critical they are, the better product I can release, the more likely I am able to succeed, the more likely I am able to achieve my dream of becoming a successful indie developer, making, enough money to keep on making, and doing other things.
And
just, I value the criticism so very much. It is one of, if not the most important thing that from my community, kind of thing. And, just really, I love it. I want more of it. I wish more people would come and give me criticism. So, Discord link down in the description. Come and join.
And to Rat's comment about, that that's how you phrase criticism is also very important. That's more on, talking about, game criticism, like on my side of things. I think that could be its own topic. But to his other point, Uh, I think it's scroll. Oh, here it's too hard to judge your own work. Yeah, it's very hard to do that, and you have to be able to look at things very objectively, and sometimes that can be very demoralizing. And we see people get stuck in their own head, saying, everything that I do is a failure, so why bother?
Yeah, like I got, like the more you work on something, the closer you get to it, and like it's like text. You look at it from far away, you can't see it. You get closer, you can see it. You get even closer, you can see it really good now. You get even closer, you can only see a few words, kind of thing. You get even closer, you can see like one letter. You get closer, all you can see is black.
Yeah.
And the closer you get to it, the less you're able to judge it, because it's all black at that point.
Yeah.
You just can't see it, and it's basically impossible to judge stuff the closer you get.
Yep.
Once you get past that threshold, kind of thing.
Yeah, and there are people who it's all blue ping, exactly, Pony. and like to Rat's about being too close to judge. Yeah, this is why a lot of games tend to end up going badly when there is no feedback being processed. That, I love it, so surely everybody else must love it. Or you refuse to take any kind of criticism. And again, that is its own topic about feedback and playtesting. But
yeah.
To get back to Mr. Game & Watch, or Mr. Game & Play, about how do you do something if you're already working with an established theme? And again, a lot of it is just trying to figure out what is the aspect of what is going to be the primary aspect of your game that you want it to be judged by. What is the thing that's going to put people, like going back to the movie analogy, what's going to put them in the seat of your movie? Or in this case, what's going to get somebody to click that buy button or click that play button? And it is tough, because we've played games that are, objectively, they're good. But there's nothing here that is keeping people invested. And we've said this before, that there's a difference between a game that is bad because there's, horrible issues to it, or a game that's bad or that's just okay, that there's nothing that's kind of keeping the person invested in it. Like we've said before, that there are games that it's like, yes, there's 600 levels in this game, but how many people are going to sit and play 600 levels of the same thing over and over again?
And that's something you should learn from your research, because in your research, you'll learn that more levels does not mean better. Although it could, depending on if you have too few levels. If you have too few levels, if you're not fully exploring your systems in your game, people are going to feel shortchanged if it ends too early. But usually that's not the case. Usually what you see very few games falling into that category. You see, a lot of the more successful games falling right there in the happy medium kind of thing. And then you see these games that will never make it anywhere, pretty much, that just have way too many levels. It's like, this game should have ended at level 20, but they have 3,468.
Yeah. And yet, to Rat's comment about knowing when to drop something, that is, again, goes back to what your core gameplay loop is. If I'm building a platformer and you throw in a walking section, that, a slow-moving walking stealth section, that's not related to your core gameplay loop. And this was something that I spoke with Chris Park about from Arkin, when he's designing a lot of his grand strategy and 4X design. That it all goes back... Yeah, exactly, Pony. Especially tile swapping, or tile moving around. There's 10 of those puzzles. That it all goes back to what the core system of your game is. everything that's in your game has to supplement that core gameplay loop. If it doesn't, then it's distracting from it. And I
Yeah.
remember him describing, like, he would come up with systems and then go, okay, how does this relate to this core gameplay? Does it? Then, yeah, let's see how it works. If you add, again, this is another thing we see from a lot of first-time developers. They'll say, I want to make a racing visual novel dating first-person shooter roguelike. Okay, what's the core gameplay of that? Well, it's the racing, shooting, and everything I just said. No, you just described your genres. That's not what your core gameplay loop is. If your core gameplay loop is racing around, then how does first-person shooting affect that? Well, it's just a side aspect of my game. Well, what we find is that side and mini games and stuff that just break everything else, if it doesn't follow through or loop back to your core gameplay, it's a distraction from it.
Yeah. And some distractions can be good when they're optional. You know, like the Final Fantasy VIII, you know, like they put Triple Triad in there. And it was a fun distraction if you wanted to go into it. But all the cards and everything that were in that game, you collected from being out in the core gameplay loop. Mm-hmm. And all of and you could, I believe that if you won stuff in the game, mm-hmm. I believe some of that went out to the core gameplay loop.
Yeah.
And all the cards have characters from the game. Mm-hmm. So, like, while it was a very different system and everything, it did tie in good bit. But it was not. It obviously was a vast departure, which is the reason why they left it completely optional.
Yes, that's important as well.
And segmented it off that you could basically do all the game except for 100% it without ever touching that card game, other than like the tutorial for it. You still had to go through the tutorial. But like the thing is this is the reason why Josh and I have said in previous podcasts, that as a beginner, you should not be going for multiple genres. You should be going for one genre and make it your twist on that genre and make it the best you can. Do not try to do 3 or 4 different genres, because number one, that's more advanced skills to get a hold of. Number 2 is if you even slightly make a tiniest mistake in that, you're going to screw up a lot of things, and you're going to wreck your own game. So as somebody who, until you have had probably 2 or 3 commercial successes, and when I say commercial successes, I mean counting paying yourself, counting paying everybody who worked for you, counting every expense that went into making the game, and you made all that money back and then some. Once you pay, and I mean pay yourself reasonable, don't pay yourself minimum wage, pay yourself, $10, $15 an hour at a bare minimum kind of thing. And same with your employees. But once you can get that, and you can get 2 or 3 of those, under your belt, maybe you're ready for that. But like, definitely don't do it before your first commercial success.
Yeah. And one of our topics, I think maybe next week, I was wanting to discuss about how do you go about combining genres and the risks of it. And like we said on an earlier show, you have to understand the rules before you're able to successfully break them. And you have to be very careful in terms of how you build these games up. And let me see, I think a comment. And going back to what we were talking about with the RPG systems, that there's a big difference between designing something that doesn't fit your game, but is completely optional, versus putting that in and requiring the player to do it. Like with the Beast Within, the whole code breaking section. That was a pretty cool thing to do. But if I'm trying to get scared and wondering what's going on with this grand mystery, completely killing the mood of your game like that, is not what you want to do. It reminded me of that section or that scene in Futurama when they're watching an interactive movie and they're like, do you want to watch Calculon go have this high stake battle? Or do you want to watch him double check his taxes?
Yeah. Now then, to that the thing I just said about not doing multiple genres. Now, see, I'm kind of an exception to that rule because, like, I'm really, really design heavy. I really know design. As does Josh. Josh and I would be exceptions to that rule to where we could possibly go outside of that and succeed. But you know what? I am following my own rules, and my last game was, single genre. My current one that I'm working on is a single genre, and I will be doing a single genre until I get at least one commercial success, bare minimum. And because, I need to see how that plays out 100% with a success, because that's going to give me knowledge that I don't have at this moment. And yeah, I could risk it and go for, combining. But if I did combine it, then I would be putting more risk. And risk is exactly what you want to cut out when you're doing game development. So henceforth, I'm not going to take that risk. And I'm going to stick to my guns and not do multiple genres. I'm going to do the best of the genre that I can do,
And this is also like one of the things that we see from Clay Entertainment, that Clay works within their genres, and each game is a different genre, has a different feel to it, but they go all in on that design, whether it's Grifflins, Auction Not Included, Invisible Ink, Don't Starve, whatever.
I hope so, Pony.
Yeah.
And I hope not, David. I mean, it is Cyberpunk. I mean, the game is Cyberpunk. It's not Cyberpunk 2077, but 2077. It's Neon Continuum, but it is Cyberpunk.
I should put stuff behind me and see if people will notice it now. I need that high little Easter eggs behind me.
Well, I still think you need to get that green screen. Get that green screen. And then when you get the green screen, just take a photo of what your camera has and then have that on there. And nobody will expect it's a green screen. And then you put random stuff in there in the background. And people, like, wait a minute. You show, you're going to have like this little animation where this, guy kind of pops up behind you. And people are like, wait a minute, did you see that? And then he gets about, see what? What are you talking about? And then it just pops out and goes in, and they're like, "Oh my God, I think there's somebody at your house, Josh. They're right behind you. They have
the calls are coming from behind you. The calls are coming from inside the house."
Exactly.
All right, I do have to get going like the next 10 minutes or so. So, to at least begin to wrap things up from what I want to say, that again, when it comes to analyzing a game, it always begins... that's not good. Well, are you making dinner, Amir? Because I could use something to eat here. But it all begins with your core gameplay loop. And whether you're looking at good or bad examples, you want to see what is the main design of this game. Then you want to be able to look at what are the aspects of your game that are tied to it. And like I said, and I say this in every one of my pieces I write these days, anytime there's something that you like or something that you dislike, make a note of it. Because you want to be able to understand why a game doesn't work. Just as you should be able to understand why a game does work. And the best way you want to be able to do that, again, is looking at both good and bad examples. Because a good game is going to show you the best possible version of it. A bad game or bad example is going to show you the worst versions of it.
And the bad versions are the easiest to learn from.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to get good, as they say, then you want to play some bad games and analyze them. And once and you also want to min-max good games. And through the combination of the two things, you will eventually, over time of playing all those bad games and min-maxing the other games, you'll not be able to cut off your design analysis, and you will break apart every game easily, automatically. Like the reason why the bad games are such a good place to start off with is because they are bad. They're very easy to see the red flags. It's very easy to see the bad parts of that game because they're everywhere. Everywhere you look is a bad part of the game. And you just like, okay, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, and this, and then you're like, okay, why are these things bad? Yeah. Because there's stuff like this in other games. And then you're like, oh, this is bad because of this. Oh, this is bad because of this.
And I also want to go back to, as we were talking about earlier with genres, that, like in my second book, when I talk about platformers, that there's a misconception that a platformer just means I walk from left to right and I hit a jump button. No, there is a huge line between good and bad platforming. Like I said, when I did the research for that book, I played a good 40 to 50 platformers in the span of 3 months. We played everything from Ori and N++, Super Mario. We also played the Blues Brothers and Rocky and Bullwinkle. That still keeps me up at night about how horrible that game was to play. And the point is that being able to look at a very wide spectrum of examples lets you start to figure out how these elements evolve from being just a rough system or mechanic into something that's very polished. Like, here's an example again, like, look at Diablo. If you look at the itemization between Diablo 1 to Diablo 2 to Diablo 3, it's 3 completely different systems. And we could argue that the itemization in Diablo 3 is not as good or not as involving as in Diablo 2. We could also throw in examples, like The Incredible Adventures of Van Helsing, Grim Dawn, Path of Exile. My mind's blank on some of the other, like, very weird ARPGs that we played. But if you only play, let's say you only play Diablo 3, that is your sum experience of itemization in ARPG. If you try to build a game like that, I'm going to guarantee you people aren't going to flock to it. Because you are playing just one example of many, and it wasn't even that good an example to begin with. And we're not saying just play Grandmaster examples, but by getting a wide spectrum of cases, you can start to figure out, okay, I like, this aspect in game A. I didn't like this aspect in game B. This part of game C could work if I change or add something from game D in it.
Yeah. And I want to go back to what you said about moving left and right and then jumping for a platformer.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I want to preface this by saying that I'm not really a programmer. I could not program my way out of a paper bag if my life depended on it, kind of thing. But moving left and right and jumping, kind of thing, just that, I could easily do that. Programming and everything in like 5-10 minutes. It is like that's not even just acceptable for even a 3-day game jam. That's not even 3-day game jam. That is the first 5-10 minutes of a 3-day game jam kind of thing. That is just the beginning of the beginning.
Yeah. And how many, again, like when I was doing my research for platformers, you saw me as I was playing them. I would spend like a good 20 seconds just pressing the jump button and seeing how it felt in my hands. And there was a difference between a game that has jumping in it versus a game that's a platformer. And that is one of those aspects of game analysis that just because you have something in your game doesn't automatically make an example of that genre. Again, it goes back to Dismantle. That, yes, you break stuff up and you build it, but no, that's still not survival. Just like if I say that if there's a gun icon in my game and there's bullets, that's a first-person shooter. Or if there's text on the screen, it's a visual novel.
Mm-hmm. But, like, you know, when you go to the platformer example, like if you look at Mario, Mario's not just jumping.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, let's look at like Mario 64 because that's my favorite example.
Mm-hmm.
Mario in 64 has the long jump where I think it's hold Z and you press forward and jump.
Mm-hmm.
You have the triple jump. You of course before that have the double jump and the regular jump. You also have variable jump height by how long you hold the button, I believe.
Yep.
You have the backflip.
Don't forget the side flip as well.
The side flip, yeah. I'm probably missing some, man.
Oh yeah, I could just rattle off the list because I just wrote one down for Super Mario Odyssey the other day.
So I mean that's just the beginning of the list of regular jumps in Mario 64, and those, you know, like if you just those would be a lot harder to program. That's not something I could do in like 10 minutes on a game jam kind of thing. That's something that takes some time, and not to mention tweaking and tuning and everything to make it all feel right. Because like you could just take Mario onto a flat 3D plane, and just play around with him, jumping around in all these different ways, and you could legitimately have fun in that.
Mm-hmm. The game feel is good. It's well done.
Yeah, but if you just took one with just a generic jump committed with no variance kind of thing, there's no fun to be had.
Oh yeah,
not in a blank room.
Yep, and again, like I see this from a lot of indie developers. I played a lot of quote-unquote platformers from indie dev that I hit the jump button and the character just goes like this. He goes, eh. And that's the entire jump. You can't control it. It's just one set height, and that's their entire platforming experience. And it doesn't feel good in the player's hand. And again, UI, UX, that is a major part of examining your core gameplay. And again, that's another area where a lot of developers get it wrong, that you can learn so many lessons from by playing bad games.
And we're also at the same time not saying that you have to have variable jumping or that you have to have all these different jumps, but you have to have something, some kind of meat there. You know, like if you're playing like a Metrovania or something, you probably don't want all those jumps. What you want is power-ups, and you want you may or may not want variable jumping. You probably do in a Metrovania, and you may want a double jump in there, or a triple jump, or a infinite jump, you know, kind of thing. You probably don't want a long jump or a sideways jump or any of that kind of thing.
It has to, again, fit the theme and the core gameplay of your title. Throwing more stuff in, like we've said, doesn't automatically make the game better. And to Rat's Tail's point, that again reminds me of when we spoke with the other Shark who worked on Vision Soft Reset. That he said that he came up with his mechanics very early on and then built the game around them. And this is why we say it's very important to study and understand this stuff. That if you can make something that feels good in the player's hands in a blank or in a completely, you know, white or black space, no art, no other models, if it just feels good to do it in there, you are, 5 to 10 steps ahead of the game. You don't want to be figuring out what your core gameplay loop is 70% through development. Earlier in the stream, we mentioned Anthem. And reading the story and the interviews of Anthem that Kotaku did, it was very easy to figure out why that game failed. They spent like 4 or 5 years not knowing what their core gameplay was going to be. You can have, the best teams in the world working on the best engines and all the money thrown at it. if you don't have a foundation, you don't have a game.
Yeah. It's that, they had a whole bunch of bricks out in the yard and they weren't in the house.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the house, rather. And to what Amir said about they spent years refining the Mario 64 mechanics, I don't know about that, because they probably didn't. They probably, did that very first. They probably refined those in the first, 6 months. And they probably had them pretty solid at the end of the first 6 months. And then they built everything else around it, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And they may have done slight tweaks every now and then to them. Mm-hmm. But, they probably didn't do much to those jumping mechanics and whatnot, to the movement in general, past the first, 6 months.
And this is why the core gameplay loop is so important, because like we've said, if you change your core gameplay loop, you are changing your entire game. Mm-hmm. And this is, again, if you change that 3 years into development, you might as well just say to yourself, throw out 3 years of development of my game, because everything is now different. And again, this is again why we hold Nintendo in such high regard in terms of their gameplay. Again, we can talk about how they do legal battles another time, but Nintendo's game design always follows just amazing game feel, that they look very simple to design, but the reason why is that they get the heart of their game done very early in development, and then it's just iterating and polish on top of that. And to Ratsail's point, if it doesn't feel right, it won't be fun. Yeah, that's the point. And
to every game that's out there, what feels right is very, very different. What feels right for Mario is not going to feel right for Metroid. And what feels right for Metroid ain't going to feel right in a Castlevania game.
Yeah, and this is, again, why it's very risky. Another trap we see developers fall into, and then I really do need to get going here, is that they'll say, oh, my platformer succeeded really well, so my next game is going to be a first-person shooter. I did really well as a platformer developer. Those skills translate 1-to-1, right? No, it doesn't work that way. Yes, in terms of the development and project management, those skills will translate. But each genre, think of it as switching art forms. Going from painting to woodworking to, I don't know, metalworking to making premier snowmen. And you have to do that research, because as Shark said, you can make the best damn platformer in the world. That doesn't mean you're a master first-person shooter developer.
Yeah, you have to do research. Your research skills will transfer.
Oh yes,
because research is research. But what in a turn-based game is going to translate into a first-person shooter? Pretty much nothing. Maybe a little bit of UI, maybe a little bit of UX, but that's pretty much it. Mm-hmm. But we're not saying that you can't make a first-person shooter after a turn-based game. What we're saying is you have to educate yourself. You have to research and go through all the things over again. And you should technically be doing this on every single game. And it's more important if you're swapping genres.
Oh, yes.
Way more important. It's a must in that case. And I would definitely highly encourage it on, even if you're not. Because the fact is if you made a tactical RPG and then you're going to go make another tactical RPG, go out there and play some more, learn, more stuff that is different and how you can make your game better.
You cannot design a game in a vacuum in today's market and expect to succeed. It's just the truth. If you just sit in your office and design a game without no outside, feedback or even knowing what's going on in the market for 5 years, you're not going to succeed. Because you're not understanding what people are doing in that space. Again, designing a platformer in 2012 is different than designing a platformer in 2020 or even in 2013.
All right, I got a question for you, Josh.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if they made a really big vacuum cleaner, and you were inside of it, and there's a computer inside of it, and Ethernet came out of the little Ethernet cord came out of the top of the bag, and went and plugged into the internet, and you had access to the whole inside from the entire internet from inside the vacuum. Could you then make a game in a vacuum?
Maybe. Can you suck other people in to be playtesters and then spit them out when they're done?
Well, you have access to the internet, so you could do that kind of thing online through your computer that's inside the vacuum cleaner.
Yeah. And to MJ's comment about Guerrilla going from Killzone to Horizon, yet we see from AAA development, I mean, look at Naughty Dog. They went from Way of the Warrior to Crash Bandicoot to Uncharted to The Last of Us. Demon Turf is, I think, 3D, but has like kind of like that billboarding or like very like pop art style of its design. And to the point is that wait.
So what we learned about the vacuum is you got to build a better vacuum.
Yeah. And you can see developers grow and evolve. And I'm sure they did a lot of research. Again, this is the problem when it comes to game design. And even just game journalism in general. That you can't learn by just reading what's on IGN or Destructor or Kotaku. That's not game analysis. You have to be able to understand what is going on underneath the surface. And like we said, like once you start doing it, it becomes a lot easier. Like for myself, this is second nature. Like people will ask me questions about, design theories or mechanics, and they don't know how to put into words, that I will figure that out within like 5 seconds. Because that's how my brain is wired now. But you have to be able to approach games like that. Like we've said, saying that you play 10,000 hours of video games over your life doesn't mean you spend 10,000 hours analyzing games.
Yeah. So I've got it. Check this out.
Mm-mm.
You know what they say about games that were designed in a vacuum?
Mm-hmm.
They suck.
All right, but I do need to get going. It is about dinner time here. I can feel myself starting to collapse. So I know people don't want to watch a stream me just laying there on the keyboard, not moving.
I mean, they might.
That is true. That'll be my most watched stream. Is he dead or is he sleeping? But I guess, do you have any final points to end this on, Shark?
Well, always do your research. I would say even if you're making the same genre, always do your research, because if you don't do your research and you're still making something in the same genre or a sequel kind of thing, your sequel is going to be stale. It's just going to be more of the same at that point. And you don't want that. You want something, you want a reason to play it. I mean, they already own the old one. Why would they come buy the new one if it's just the same thing but more? Unless they just wanted more, which most people want more than more. Because I mean, that's how humans work. We don't just want more. We want more than more.
Yep, and to Will's point about, again, there is that push and pull between the business and the art side of things, and that's a topic we have discussed many times, and we'll probably discuss that in the future as well. But ultimately, you have to understand what makes a video game work if you want to do things commercially. Again, like, if you don't care about this, if you are just making games as part of a side project or just for yourself, you can ignore everything that we've talked about tonight. What we're focusing on is for people who are trying to have a business in the game industry and profit in it.
Yeah. And to Amir's point, the market doesn't always know what it wants. I would phrase it somewhere differently. The market doesn't know anything. The market the market has no idea what it wants. It doesn't ever know what it wants, because the market will tell you that it wants this, this, and this. You make this, this, and this,
and your game still fails,
and everybody hates it.
All right. But with that, I do need to get going. I think we definitely went over our time. But for those of you who are watching this record who missed our earlier part, let us know what you think about having the Weird Game segment be its own separate kind of maybe mini show or mini cast one time during the week. And if you are new, check out our respective Discords linked down below. You can follow me on Twitter at GWBicer. And I'll be updating my Discord with our topic of the week as soon as I'm done here.
And you can come join my Discord, and my Twitter is Nexus Games INC1, and you can also subscribe to my YouTube channel and whatnot. I do, of course, the Safeway Stream podcast on Sundays with Josh here. I do game streams on Tuesdays, and I do dev streams on Fridays. And we also have our once a month dev chats on our Discord server, where we, play a game if there is a playable version, and we get feedback and criticism and whatnot, and give you guys a preview of what's to come and what just got put in and all that other kind of stuff. And links to both mine and Josh's stuff is at the bottom in the description of both his and my YouTube channel.
All right. Well, with that said, I'm going to go grab something to eat and refill for our nightly stream. We will be back next Sunday around 4:30 ET for our live show, and come back for daily discussions on game design here and on game wisdom, where he's in the art and science of games. Until next time, have a great night.
See ya.